It's live now, Chair.
Kia ora everyone, welcome to the Community Development Committee meeting of the 8th of March 2021. Welcome to councillors, Lemire, councillors and staff and public. And a warm welcome to those groups that are presenting this evening. Apologies for the meeting. We do have apologies from Francois, from Paul Madgwick, from Paul Davidson, Councillor Davidson, sorry, and Deputy Mayor Carruthers. Do we have any other apologies for the meeting? If there are none, is someone prepared to move that the apologies be accepted?
Yep.
Councillor Neal, thank you. And seconded Councillor Cogan. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? The resolution's carried. Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. The interest register is here to be circulated. If there are any updates for members, can they please be known to the Executive Assistant? That would be great. Are there any urgent items that are not on the agenda for this meeting that need to form part of this agenda?
Not from staff.
Nothing from staff? Anything from members? Being none, we move through to the minutes of the previous meeting. The minutes of the previous meeting, which was held the 5th of October 2020. Those minutes have been circulated via Microsoft Teams. There's been no feedback that they weren't a true and correct record of the meeting held, so someone prepared to move that they be confirmed as a true and correct record of the meeting. Move Councillor Cogan. Someone prepared to second that? Councillor Neal, thank you very much. All those in favour?
Yep.
Aye. Those against? That's carried. Thank you very much. I approve that my digital signature be added to the confirmed Community Development Committee meeting minutes of 5th of October 2020. Cool. Administratia is over. Into our agenda items, starting with the action list. Good evening to the Chief Executive, who's going to take us through agenda item 5, which is the action list for the committee. Simon.
Good evening, Chair and Councillors and your Worship. Guests, I'll take you through item by item and ask for questions at the end. Hectica Museum Governance Group scheduled a workshop to address the issues relating to the groups involved and would like to be involved. We have a new museum director arriving in April. We would like to use their lead to take all the workshops together for the governance group and also the future of the Hectica Museum. Culture and Heritage Subcommittee. This links to the above item, so we'd like to do that as part. So the workshop needs to happen first in terms of defining council's directions in this space, and then rolling that out into a wider subgroup. Signage and budget plan. This is the work with Destination Hectica, led by our planning manager. They met with Destination Hectica quite some time ago now, and further work was required to finalise what that would look like. That is yet to proceed. Signage condition across the district. The committee requested that see right to NZTA South Island manager regarding the signage maintenance issue. That has been completed and the feedback is yet to be received. Call for expressions of interest in workshop to do with the Hectica Museum Governance Group and Cultural Heritage Subcommittee. This is unable to proceed until the outcomes of the first committee is reviewed and the associated workshops in terms of future committee structures. I'm presenting our paper back to council in the March council meeting about future committees. Hectica Region Theatre site visit. This was completed on the 19th of February. Hectica Region Theatre maintenance and plant replacement plan. I expect to see this scheduled for the March committee meeting. Today is on the agenda. Entrance signs to Kamara. The lighting is very dim on the signs. That work has been tidied up and completed. And the Kamara Residents Trust additional funding options. I understand that the Kamara Community Group are meeting either later this week or early next week on the future allocations requirements for the Kamara Endowment Fund and also the future of the Chinese Gardens in Kamara. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Simon. I'll open it up to questions from the committee if there are any regarding the action list. Councillor Neil. Who do you wish to hear? Councillor Cogan. None from them. A few from me, if that's all right. Can we strike the theatre office being completed, please, as an action? And also both actions relating to the theatre can be, I think, with the committee's approval, be struck. The signage plan and budget from Destination Hectica, have we received that, and is that part of our budgeting workshop tomorrow?
No, we have received no request for funding. The last conversation we had was to do with some displays at Hectica Gorge in terms of publicising what the Hectica Township had to offer and particularly some promotional signs on the way out to the gorge and on the way back to coincide with some of our own signage.
Okay, so we've got the gorge signage, we've got those funny things we're calling wayfinders in the town that we need to fix, and we've also got the directional signage. So
the directional signage, yet to quantify if that was going to proceed with Destination Hectica.
Can we update that action to be actionable and that we actually do something in this space? Does it need the committee to be involved in the discussion of Destination Hectica to prepare a budget so we can roll that in as part of the LTP? Because I can see timelines are going to be missed otherwise. We're going to get into a consultation process and have missed the opportunity to capture these sign projects that have been ongoing for a number of years.
Can I pass over to Fiona?
Oh yeah, good evening, Fiona.
Good evening, Chair. Just to clarify, the previous conversation that we had around the signage in the township was around basically the business community saying that they didn't feel that they had funds to proceed with that right at this point in time. There was a conversation around coming to the council with some layout of costs, but we had not received that. And I think the other step was to look around the town with the transportation manager and see where the appropriate locations were, which I don't believe proceeded.
Okay, can we update that action? I personally will meet with all the stakeholders and we will action a meeting with the transportation manager to walk that, just so we can keep the momentum going, and we'll complete that ahead of.
We keep Fiona in the loop.
Oh, it needs to be Fiona needs to be the lead staff member, but just so we don't miss it, because we're March, we need it by the end of this month, really, don't we, to form part of the budgets.
And as long as it's flagged tomorrow that you'd like to include it as potentially a future budget process as part of the workshop tomorrow.
Cool, okay. And I'll make sure that we meet. So that's great. Thanks for that, Simon. I understand what you're saying around the staff member coming on board for that. I'd like to see something very similar to the subcommittee for the West Coast Wilderness Trail. I think that works really well. That's a significant capital project. The Carnegie Building and the Future Museum and the library. I think it needs oversight, governance oversight, and I think that needs to be captured as part of the report back to council next month, because it's a multi-million-dollar project.
I suppose just to reflect on the very first point, it is around working with council in terms of what council's direction is on the way forward before we move any further.
Yeah, so we can roll, it's that Hectica Museum Governance Group, Culture and Heritage Subcommittee, and a call for expressions of interest for those as part of the report that you'll bring to council this month in terms of where they might sit in the proposed future structure. Is that correct?
First of all, we need to have the workshop with council. That's point one. defining the executive committee, we'll have a ring fence around that in terms of what it could look like to be confirmed until that workshop is completed.
And when do we envisage this workshop happening?
In late April, once the new person arrives.
Okay. We'll note that, thank you. And
Bearing in mind the new committee structure won't take effect until 1st of July is the intention.
yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you. That's all from me. Any comments on anything else?
No. I'd like to move that the action list be received with the removal of the NZTA action, the removal of both region theatre actions and the addition of direction signs.
Cool. Thank you very much, Your Worship. Can someone to second that? Yeah, Councillor Neil. All those in favour? Aye. All those against? The resolution's carried. Thank you for that report, Simon. It's a good work. We're going to get underway very soon in this space. Okay. Our first presentation this evening is from the Western Mountain Bike Club, and it was an agenda item that's come up through this committee in regards to a future vision for cycling in the area and the district, and how something could be pulled together to promote cycling as the initial discussion, and then the invitation was extended to the Western Mountain Bike Club. So we welcome the Mountain Bike Club and interested parties from a range of stakeholders to speak to the meeting. So welcome, Liam.
Yeah. So to the Mayor, Chair, other councillors and council staff. Kia ora koutou. I'm Liam Anderson and I'm the President of the Western Mountain Bike Club, and I've been asked to talk to you a bit about what we do and what ideas we have that could improve cycling opportunities in Hectica. So the Western Mountain Bike Club has been going for over 20 years in Hectica and the wider West Coast region. At the moment we've got about 50 financial members. The initial focus of the club in the early days was about having races and group rides. But in recent years, the club's main focus has been developing the trail network in Bluespur Forest there in the box. The club has an access arrangement with Ngāi Forests to use the land at Bluespur to ride and build trails, and that's a great relationship with them. So this is a close-up of the Bluespur Forest where our trail network is. Over the past 20 years, we've built over 10 kilometres of hand-built trail, which takes a long time to build. We've got a core team trail of about 6 to 8 trail builders, and they're quite a skilled bunch. We've got 3 engineers, surveyor, someone who's a master trail builder under the West Coast Wilderness Trail system, and various other people who are really motivated trail builders in the area. Club members have had key roles in set out and design in the Paparoa Trail. The club have had a number of work days on the West Coast Wilderness Trail, helping cut alignments and frontal alignments. So in the past 15 years, the club's main work has involved developing our trail network at Bluespur Forest. And for a while we've been building trails for ourselves, which generally are kind of steep and hard and not good for learning on. And we kind of identified, our group of riders wasn't increasing much, except for really good riders were coming from out of town, a lot more to ride in our trails because we're good. So we started thinking about what can we do that will get new people into mountain biking and young people into mountain biking. And let's catch up with because we'd all kind of nursed our children up through these trails, which ended in a lot of tantrums and us and the kids, because they're just steep and hard. We introduced some club rides to introduce new people to the trail, and we get 25 people to those new people to those rides, which is great, but still we wouldn't get a big uptake afterwards because the trails were still too hard for them to go and ride on their own. So we started thinking about, well, what can we do to help this? And so we thought, well, we need to start linking the easy trails so that there's some circuits for people to do. So in the past 3 years, we've built 3 grade 3 dual direction tracks, which are the bright green tracks on the map, the upcycle rise of the track bots, and the one we're building at the moment, which is Hectica. And they're linking grade 3 tracks. And then we've got a future plan track, which is the dashed purple line there, which will be a grade 3 descending track to really complete the loop there. And so that's what we're trying to do up there at the moment. Just catch up. So when we were building Rise of the Track Bots, which is the one on the bottom left, on the first night, we had about 6 kids turn up with the other trail builders, and they had an awesome time building a lot of track. And we kind of think, well, this is great, this is what we want, young people in the forest. And I was thinking, how can we keep this going? How can we get these kids to build this track for us? And so we have LPs at the end of our trail sessions, and I said, if you guys stay with us and build this track to the end, you guys can name it. And the kids just went, oh my God, really? I said, can we name the track? And I was like, yeah. And so that track took 6 months to complete. We did it, we have a trail building night once a week, and every night, pretty much, there's more kids on our crew than adults. And one night we had 23 people, and it was just an amazing thing to be a part of. Oops. And so that's what I'm talking to. So they built that Sunrise, the track bots, and it was all through winter after dark. Kids would come out after rugby practice and basketball and things, and then to spend 2.5 to 3 hours on the rubber building track, and they're just fizzing. And now we have this superb grade 3 climbing track to ride, which just goes through the most beautiful forest and has looks up the Hectica Valley. So we've been building those to make the forest up there more accessible, and we started thinking, well, what are some other problems for getting people to the forest? And in the old days, we all used to ride up the Heritage Trail, then some of us started driving and kind of got shunned by the others, and pretty much now everyone drives from Hectica up to Blueswood Forest to go riding. And I think the main reason for that is the Heritage Trail. There's a couple of sections in it which aren't fit for purpose, and I think that's a big boundary for kids getting up to ride there because they can't drive. And the Heritage Trail's got 2 steep bits, which are the little circle bits there behind the race course, and up to Brookfield Road, there's the big cutting, which is pretty difficult to ride. Get back to where I was. And yeah, those would be fairly easy fixes, and I think they would increase the number of people accessing the forest on their bikes from town. So, and we've also been thinking, what are some other opportunities that could be in Hectica to get young people into riding? The Wadeson Island BMX track was really good. That was built probably 20 years ago, but most of it's underwater now and it's pretty overgrown. It's a long way out of town. I think kids like to be seen when they're doing their tricks. So we started thinking about these sorts of things in town for kids to ride on, building riding opportunities in town. I grew up in Auckland, which was a very different place to Hectica, but you know, we lived at BMX tracks all around town in Auckland, and they were a really great place to develop your skills for riding. I don't know if anyone went to the Mountain Bike Film Festival last week. There was a really inspirational film there about a BMX track that was built in urban America somewhere, and just the uptake of kids. They had to turn kids away. They had thousands turning up every weekend. It was a mountain bike track. So as a club at our meetings, we've had our eyes on, around Sunset Point for something like this. There seems to be some great terrain there, and it would be an easy build. That would link into the West Coast Wilderness Trail, and it would give somewhere for kids to take their bikes, just to be able to ride, develop their skills without having to be taken somewhere by their parents. And both Ross and Hectica primary schools have developed similar schooner trails to this, and they're exceedingly popular with the kids. So, big picture successes and goals of the club in here. For the last 20 years, the club has actively engaged DOC in developing new riding opportunities in and around Hectica and in the backcountry. We've engaged in the DOC's conservation management strategy process several times, and from those we've had two main successes. Is the water race track from Lake Canary down was opened up for biking through lobbying, and then the Lake Canary walkway was also opened up, and DOC actually spent up to close to $100,000 improving that for biking, which was overseen by the Mountain Bike Club, all that work, and we provided hundreds of hours of members' work to help with that as well. So future goals for riding for the club, one that's always been on the radar since I've been in Hectica is the Styx Aotearoa Loop. Probably 15 years ago, when it was still semi-clear, a number of club riders actually did ride the loop with their bikes, and they loved it. There's a lot of carrying and things too, but it was an amazing route. We've flagged this with DOC several times, and they're open to that, but it's quite a project to do that. But down the Aotearoa, there's a lot of bench trail already. Up the Styx, there's a lot of bench trail already, and I understand that DOC is looking at redoing the access to the Styx up the true left side of the Styx. So it would be good to engage them to talk about whether biking could be included in that development. And in more recent times, since the West Coast Wilderness Trail has been developed, we've identified this loop around the Hectica Basin there, where you could connect it to the Wilderness Trail and come up through Falls Creek Road, up the true left of the Hectica, cross the gorge there, and form a route that goes all the way through to the Styx and the Hectica, which most of that is already built. There's a couple of technical issues to deal with, but there's most of that is existing gravel roads. So it's and we have a couple of other small tracks that we would like to develop off Blue Spur, which go through Dockland too. Things that we can deal with. So kind of summing up, the club's very active. We're building a lot of good trail and improving it for a wider range of people in Hectica to ride. We think a lot about how we can link our trails to Hectica and to get better uptake and make them more accessible. And we're actively pursuing new opportunities with stakeholders around the region, and we've had successes in the past and we're looking forward to in the future. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
On the second half of the Act. Thanks, Liam. Kia ora koutou, I'm Dave Ritchie. I'm the Operations Manager for Cycles Journeys in town here. So I put people on the trail every day. I look after them on the Westland Cycle Trail. It's fantastic. I'm also part of the Destination Hectica, committee, executive group thing. And I'm also part of the club, so I'm part of the trail team. I was part of the Trackbots project, so I've got kind of a foot in both camps in this scene here. And one of the things, in conversation with these two guys, who really are the kings of this whole thing, in conversation with these two guys over beers just about every week, even when we're riding, it's like, well, wouldn't it be great to be more closely associated with the council so that we can be closer to people who make decisions about these kind of things and maybe have a little influence. And so that's really where this is coming from. And then you tie that in with Destination Hectica role and start to think of Hectica as a destination. What is one of the things that Hectica is really good at, maybe doesn't quite know it, and that would allow visitors another reason to come and stay in Hectica. And cycling is just so blindingly obvious, it's not funny. You have to have, you had your eyes closed and you get in a bucket of sand, you didn't see how many cyclists have been here this summer. It's just like, wow, look at that. The people are coming from all over the country to ride the Wilderness Trail, which is great, but Hectica, it kind of bypasses Hectica in some ways. Well, no, it doesn't bypass it, it goes straight through it, but it also goes around the place. I want to kind of zoom out a little bit and talk about the bigger picture in the South Island at least. And has this thing got a pointer thing? Has it got a little laser gun? Because I think I'm pinned to this place, I can't make it out.
Latham, there might be some people
Oh, there we go.
downstairs wanting to come up.
Okay, great. There we go. Okay, yeah. So, it doesn't show on that screen though. It disappears when it's the screen. That's good. If you read from the top down, Heafy, shared use trail, dock, Old Ghost Road, private trail, amazing reputation, phenomenal trail. Kawatiri, just south of Westport, between Westport and Charleston, soon to open. Paparoa, dock, shared use trail. We run a shuttle service for that right now. That's booked out every day. And we suspect it'll be booked out every day forever. It's just so popular. People are screaming to get into the big mountain rides. And then there's the West Coast Wilderness Trail south of that again. So the northern part of the west coast of the South Island is developing a suite of rides and a reputation for really unique big mountain, multi-day mountain bike rides. And I think that Hectica should be part of that. We have the West Coast Wilderness Trail. It's a grade 2 trail, so it allows pretty much anyone to ride on that trail. Those other trails are much more difficult. Kawatiri excluded, but they're much more difficult and they attract a different kind of rider, but they really generate buzz. And so that's what the South Island, the West Coast South Island is doing right now. It's generating buzz around these big mountain rides. Looking a little closer to home, if we think about developing opportunities around the West Coast Wilderness Trail that fully align with what the club's vision actually is, you start to see some of these things opening up. So the red trail is the existing West Coast Wilderness Trail. The green trail in the bottom right-hand corner is the Styx Arahura Loop or Circuit, if it were to be in place. And you can see that touches the West Coast Wilderness Trail at Milltown, essentially. The big yellow loop in the bottom left of the picture would be what I would call the Hectica Gorge Circuit, which you can see extends from the Milltown area around Lake Canary, either side, but either on gravel road on the eastern side or on the existing trail, which needs work, as Liam identified. All of a sudden, you've got a loop around Lake Canary, and then you've got a loop around the basin through the gorge, and then along the south side of Hectica into the Mahinapua area again, where you could create another loop around Lake Mahinapua. So now you've got 2 day rides out of Hectica, a loop around Lake Canary and back, which will soon be entirely off-road, a loop a loop around Lake Mahanapua, or a circuit around Lake Mahanapua, again, almost entirely off-road, both of which utilise the West Coast Wilderness Trail, both of which link to an already mostly complete Hectica Gorge Circuit. You could also put in a loop in Goldsboro, or even just a link, an off-road link, which would take you to Kumara. So now all of a sudden we've got rides which are achievable for a wide range of riders that link to the West Coast Wilderness Trail, and that also link Kumara and Hectica off-road. So all of a sudden, riding off-road to Hectica, to Kumara from Hectica for the day to go and have lunch at the Theatre Royal and then come back, that's something you can now do. At the moment, if you want to do that, you've got to ride 70 odd K, and that's only a few riders who are going to take that one. And that's just one way. There are lots of families we see coming here to ride who don't really have many options. The West Coast Wilderness Trail doesn't really have many loops. It's great riding for families, but many families don't have 4 days, or they don't want to ride 4 days with their kids. They're committing to 35K a day to try and do that. So it's actually not really an option for many families. So having those little loops that are attached to the Wilderness Trail would all of a sudden make Hectica a much more family-friendly cycling destination. One of the other things that would key this in is having a fixed heritage loop and an altered heritage loop. So in my map here, that heritage loop is in white, and the broken part currently is the dotted line. And we've actually tried to fix that, and at the moment the key piece of that fix passes through a piece of private land which may become available in the future, may not, but an immediate fix would be to fix the bit right where it said heritage loop, that switchback there is the bit from around behind the racecourse up onto brickfields, and that's actually not a super hard fix. It's all about just changing the gradient. So to fix that is not a super hard project, but it then gives us a very complete loop which takes you out all the way down Ho Road out into Canary and links you back into the West Coast Wilderness Trail. It also takes you right by the base of Blue Spur, so all of a sudden you can ride from town to Blue Spur, which connects the trails up there to town with single track. This is really, I think, the first step. If we were going to do anything in this space, that's the first step we would probably take. The yellow star on the far left-hand corner is where that is. Council have very kindly built the terrain for this already by putting a large lump of earth out on the southern out on Blue Spur and covering it in grass. All we have to do now is spread it around a little more thoughtfully and cover it in some nice native planting, and you are going to have an absolutely stunning venue for people to go and ride bikes and have a really good time. And something I want to point out here, this is from Destination Hectica marketing and research. So over the last few months, DH has been running a kind of Facebook research project, I guess, based on what kind of themes people have been clicking on in our Facebook ads. And the image that absolutely riveted people to Hectica and generated more click-throughs and engagement than any other image was any image that contained a picture of the beach with the mountains in the background. That is the image that iconographs Hectica. So if you can now put a bicycle in that image, you tie Hectica to cycling immediately. The other thing you do is when you have a cycle path, and this one would qualify as a heartland ride, which is a kind of one grade down from the great rides, and it makes you eligible for NZTA funding, that Hectica Gorge Circuit, all of a sudden you put bicycles in the Hectica Gorge icon photograph, and now Hectica is really starting to identify as a cycling destination. So from a purely destination management perspective, having those two features is really, really a big bonus, we think. So there you go. So that's a picture of what the network might start to look like. It brings cycling to town, it drops barriers for kids, it creates family-friendly riding opportunities, it allows more riders to ride here, it creates a link between Blue Spur and town, and it gives us this really phenomenal-looking trail network, trail cluster. And if you go right back to the $75,000 cycling strategy for destination that Development West Coast Board a couple of years ago, it talks consistently about networks and clusters, and they identify Greymouth and Westport as being clusters. But if you look at Westport, the only cluster there is really the Heafy and the Old Ghost Road, and they're both, neither of them are circuits, neither of them connect to town. And even when they put the Kawatere in there, it's still not a circuit, it's still kind of awkward, it's an out and back, and that's what cyclists hate. They love loops. Everyone does. If you start to look at and so Greymouth actually has the Paparoa and the Westland Wilderness Trail at one end of it, but nothing else. Westport has Denniston, which is an interesting historical area, but actually rubbish mountain biking, because it was never designed as a mountain bike area. And to be honest, you've got to design good trails now, because the offering in this country is getting so sophisticated that if you have rubbish trails, no one will come. These trails are really good. These trails are through town. They're really good. Blue Spur, very unique, hand-built trail in this country now. Is actually getting quite hard to find. And that's the thing that people really identify. We did a little kind of, back of the envelope analysis on which of those projects would be most useful to do first, and we based it on what kind of benefits does it bring to the community, both in terms of their social benefits and also the economic benefits, and also the ease of realisation in terms of how difficult these things might be to put in place. And this is very back of the envelope, but I think it shows us that if you look in the upper right-hand corner of the page, you can see these things are easily realised and have high levels of community benefit. So they should probably formulate the first things you do, because you get the most bang for buck. Sunset Point Flow Park, as I'm calling it, you've already done most of the work by getting all that material there. Now you've just got to get the thing designed and built, and you're going to have a phenomenal marketing message for Hectica, and you're going to bring riding into town and drop the barriers for kids particularly. The heritage loop replacement or realignment is just so easy to do, and it's going to, again, create a family-friendly riding environment and link everything to Blue Spur, so kids especially can potentially start riding up there. We're going to see more e-bikes in the future, so that the distance from town isn't going to be an issue. What will always be an issue getting to Blue Spur is the two corners on Ho Ho Road, which are just lethal when you're riding a bike. And the continued off-roading of the West Coast Wilderness Trail, which is pretty much business as usual. It's an ongoing project. It's going to make the West Coast Wilderness Trail kind of cement it as the leading great ride in the country, which is consistently rated as one of the top 3 by the Tour Aotearoa riders who will be coming through here pretty soon. So you can see that cluster on the top right. In the centre of the page, you can see the Mahinapua Circuit, the Carnieri Circuit, the Goldsboro, what I'm calling the Goldsboro Link, and the Hectica Gorge Circuit. Now, the Carnieri Circuit's almost all in place. It just needs work along the western side of the lake to make it so. And actually, that's been already discussed with DOC, and so it doesn't fall outside of their management strategy at all. The Mahinapua Circuit needs a new trail built just essentially around one half of the lake, and that also ties in another Hectica icon, which should be the Treetop Walk. So all these trails are, they're thinking about tying in icons as well. The Gorge Circuit, mostly complete. The biggest sticking point there will be a bridge across the Tauroha River. It's on DOC's radar already. The Carnieri Circuit, I'll talk about that, and the Goldsboro Link. I mean, you can actually ride to Kumara now along most of the Stafford Road, and that's actually a nice gravel road climb. It's quite a pleasant ride. It'd be really nice to tie that in with the historical aspect of Goldsboro and do something that is a loop around Goldsboro as well as a link to Kumara. And that's going to need some trail along the roadside, so that's an easy TA kind of project. So that cluster of rides in there is kind of the, I guess, mid-range stuff, and the Styx Arahura Circuit is the most difficult to realise. It's a major project, but I think it would have really good community benefit because it provides this kind of aspirational ride. But what it also does is it ties Hectica into the big mountain ride club of the Paparoas and the Old Ghost and the Heathy. So it gives us something of that calibre, which we currently don't have. And there's real value in that. This is impossible to read on that screen, kind of slightly more rationalised breakdown. Classifies the ongoing off-roading of the West Coast Wilderness Trail as kind of business as usual. Let that happen. Easy points, the Heritage Loop realignment, bang for your buck will be the Sunset Point Flow Park. That talks about those 4 circuits as being the easiest to actualise and the hardest to actualise, and then the Holy Grail as being the Styx Arahura Loop. So that is what Destination Hectica has kind of alighted on as a project plan or a suggestion to the council. It ties very closely to the Mountain Bike Club's vision, unsurprisingly, shared over beers with John and Liam himself. But this has also been shared with DOC, it's been shared with, so they're aware of it, it's been shared with Development West Coast. They're looking to, they have $1 million budget for events in Westland, and they're looking for some kind of cycling event. And we've talked about the idea of running something like an enduro style event on Blue Spur. And if you tie that into an urban style event that uses either a street circuit or the brand new Sunset Point Flow Park, then you've really got a pretty spectacular looking event that showcases the town as a cycling destination. And we have suggested to DWC that if we were willing to let out some of our trails be used as part of an enduro event and recognise that 100 riders on those trails are going to take quite a toll on the trail, an appropriate cohort would be to fund the construction of the Sunset Point Flow Park. We haven't actually discussed that in detail, but it's been thrown across the table. That's been thrown across the table as a thing. And at that point, I'll stop talking and let you ask some questions. I'm sure you've got lots.
Thank you, Liam. Thanks, Dave, for the presentation. We'll open it up for councillors or any questions. Councillor Neil.
Yeah, I think it looks absolutely stunning. You're totally behind it. Absolutely. It'd be good if you could have horses.
You were going to say that.
What is this horse you speak of?
I'm sure you've got some horses riders in your families. I think it's fantastic.
Well, the thing is that, I mean, we're not talking about, constructing a sole use mountain bike only trail. A lot of that, so the Hectica Loop, circuit, for example, is around the basin. It's on existing trail and or gravel roads. So it's actually, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be constructed with hard mountain biking in mind. It's constructed with all kinds of people being able to ride their e-bikes in particular around a stunning loop. It's a heartland ride. It'll be on the NZ Cycle Trails website. It'll be phenomenal loop.
When our kids were young, or one in particular, we used to go well out of our way to go to a good skate park. And it's got the same potential for kids, and it's just the energy that they use is unbelievable. Yeah.
If you drive around New Zealand right now on a mountain biking trip, which I did recently to a small degree, and you visit some of the new parks that are in place. So Bike Glendoo is a really good example. It's private land. It's beautifully constructed trail. It's so enjoyable to ride. All kinds of people can ride it. There's no lift access, so you pay $30 and you go and ride in this beautiful park. It's stunning views, well constructed, clearly constructed, cafe at the bottom, all that kind of stuff. But around New Zealand right now, the offerings from towns around cycling are getting quite sophisticated. And the beauty of it is that people can just go and each one's like a different meal. So on this holiday, we go and have the Glendoo meal. On this holiday, we go and have the Hectica meal. Right now, we don't have enough stuff to make people come here either more than once or to spend more than one day here. So they come and do, the baby boomers come and do the Westland Cycle Trail, and that's fantastic. But there's a whole segment of New Zealand that we're missing out on. And they'll do Hamner this year, they'll do Hectica next year, they'll do Wanaka, they'll do Queenstown. It's like, it's a circuit in itself.
So it's the people coming in, but it's also the kids here. You see, you've got 20-something kids up there.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, but by golly, you get more of some of this.
And you see it in the towns that have good offerings. There's always kids riding. Yeah. Always. Yeah. And that's really what was driving the mountain bike club, because we're all old enough now to have kids, and the pain of taking them with on the offerings we have, it's just too great to bear.
Thank you. Councillor Kogan.
Yeah, no, thanks very much, Liam and Dave, for that presentation. That's amazing you guys have actually provided and given so much commitment to this over the last 20 years, because that's a fair amount of work you've already invested into it. So, I take my hat off to you guys for that commitment and also your vision for what you're looking at, taking it forward. And I certainly don't want to get in the way of the vision, because I think it's fabulous. I guess I just have to ask the questions around, because currently at the moment, as you guys are extending these tracks, who maintains them and who's paying? Yeah, wow. And what about if there's any costs associated with the maintenance? Where does that come from? Oh, so that, like, longer term, that's not sustainable either, really, is it?
Well, interestingly, I think it possibly is. I mean, we have this kind of throwaway phrase that the Blue Spur mountain bike park is our own private mountain bike park, and it's called FUBU, for us, by us. But increasingly, we're noticing other people coming to ride there. And I don't think at the moment we're actually seeking outside assistance for that. We actually kind of like having control over our own space to some degree. It would be interesting. I think if there was one thing we were going to try and do, would be to get a link from the kind of stations in the area up into the heart of the park on an easily climbable trail. But that's probably like a small digger job. And then we're digging a trail in a commercial forest, and it's probably going to mean a couple of trees getting out of the way, and that's probably not great for our relationship with Motahu. So we're a bit, we're not, I mean, what the mountain bike club is seeing is better access to the forest so that kids can ride there, and we're currently building trails that kids really enjoy. So the issue for the kids is getting them there. It's too dangerous to ride on Ho-Ho Road, and the parents aren't always available to take them there. So access is the primary issue. That's why bringing the riding into town kind of solves part of that conundrum. I think the volume of, or the total kilometres of trail up there isn't really the issue. And so in maintaining it, actually, as Liam pointed out, getting the kids engaged in digging the trails actually creates a real sense of ownership in the kids. So it was amazing. Liam said, very throwaway comment. If you guys want to help us finish this, you can name it. And they named it in 10 minutes. It was a perfect name because we called them track bots, because it's like we give them 10 metres of trail. So, okay, you've got to join this bit and that bit. It's got to look like this, go. And they're chipping away, and they're like track bots. And so it was perfect. And I don't think we'll have any trouble recreating that again. So I think part of the process here is that we are engaging the kids in the whole thing, not just the riding.
But I guess what I'm conscious of, it's like the Wilderness Trail, which has been great and implemented, but it's still, you still have, non-ending, maintenance that has to happen with it. And I've seen, even with that coming on board, as you guys have, there's been so many coming in and out of that, and this one offering marketing and that one doing something that, it would be good, to see the bigger picture of how, with the mountain biking and your vision and the Wilderness Trail and that vision, how we could make it sustainable, because, the reality is, people like you guys that provide that wonderful commitment now, may not always be there. So I'm just thinking of the longer term of putting something like this in place. I do love the idea of the flow park. It's interesting because we've actually talked a little bit about, options for down along that beachfront.
There is only one, Jenny.
Well, a half basketball courts come up in the conversation along the line as well. But I still love the concept of it, because what an amazing area down there. So, to me, but I guess that's a discussion that would also then have to go to
Tomorrow.
Okay, yeah. And that's also around that whole beachfront, committee and planning and stuff too. But yeah, so it's good. Okay, so it's obviously good timing with that. Good timing. But yeah, they're the only two things that I just would question mark. And it's not that then, it wouldn't happen. It's just how would that look?
Are you talking about the Blue Spur trails or the big picture stuff where we've been?
Well, it's the extended trails you're talking about and the links that you're talking about, them wanting to get and put in place, and then how, once we get that done, then how it's maintained longer term and what funding would be can be provided, because we can't expect the Hectica Mountain Bike Club to be the ones that are always having to, it's coming out of your time that you guys are so freely giving. it shouldn't be an expectation that that'll always be. It's going to go in, it needs to go in and then have a longer term plan with it.
Well, thank you for the discussion, questions. Worship.
Couple of questions. I follow you on Facebook. You did a great job. It's pretty exciting just looking at, I've never been on the site, but it looks pretty exciting. On camera. FUBU, by the sound of that. What's the legal status of the Westland Mountain Bike Club? Is it an incorporated society?
Yeah, we're an incorporated society.
Okay, it is. Okay, so it would seem to me that funding is probably the thing that needs to be focused on, and every now and then funding becomes available for all sorts of things. In order to get funding, you've got to have a plan, and you've got to be ready to slap your deal down on the counter when the funding becomes available. Perhaps that's something we should all be talking about at some stage, because picking out your priority of what you'd like to do, because there is funding out there.
Did I not make that clear?
I see it. I see it. I really like it. I think you. I really like it. But yeah, so it's an incorporated society. Awesome. You're doing a great job.
And that's on the plan. We don't have the club member who's willing to drive that side of things yet.
We're too busy building trail.
Too busy doing. Thank you very much for the presentation, Liam and Dave. I think you've given us as a committee a lot of food for thought. We are right in budget cycle, as we alluded to earlier. We're literally meeting tomorrow to talk budgets, and when you see a priority list like that and potential stakeholders or that project leads, it becomes quite clear what ones are easy for council to pick up and what might need further planning, and where the relationships sit with other stakeholders and agencies. So expect further dialogue from us, I think, is the message from the committee and staff for the future. Really appreciate you both and your wider team taking the time, energy and effort to come and present to our committee. Thank you. Very soon there'll be food passed around very shortly. We're moving into our second presentation, but thank you so much.
Right.
Someone prepared to move that we receive the presentation from the Western Mountain Bike Club, and that council notes and the committee notes the potential projects and potential project plan.
Yeah.
Move Councillor Neil, seconded Councillor Cogan. All those in favour?
Yeah.
All right. Those against? That's carried. Thank you very much for the presentation. Now we're joined by Councillor Hart in a different capacity online, and she's going to be speaking to us on behalf of the Kokatahi Kuwhirangi Community Association. So good evening, Anna. Welcome.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks. Good evening, Mayor, Chairs, Councillors and staff. Thanks for the opportunity to give you a bit of an update what's been happening in the Kokatahi and Kuwhirangi communities. I am Chair of the Kokatahi Kuwhirangi Community Society. So, and recently we've been forming an emergency response group with the help of Lauren from the Regional Council. And from this, there's a very small group of people that have applied to the community facilities funding for funds to set up both halls at Kokatahi and Kuwhirangi as emergency response centres. So that application has been completed, and we submitted that last week. We've just got a couple of minor paperwork things to get that finalised, but hopefully we will see some funding come out of that. So we, as a community, we feel that both halls need to be set up as emergency response centres, because we're actually divided by a one-way concrete bridge, and should that be damaged, in a natural disaster, then Koirangi could be cut off. So, and we want to be able to cater for the potential of many tourists that could possibly up the gorge as well in an event. So, the Kokatahi Hall has they've submitted their application for a funds towards a generator install and a shed and water storage facilities and some radio communication that is compatible so we can talk to headquarters. So that's hopefully we get funding out of that. And the Kowhidaurangi Hall is done the same application for the same things, but we need to, on the Koirangi side, we need to actually, the hall needs some major exterior work done. So we need to, as a community, we need to look at other funding options to get that work done to make it fit for purpose. So yeah, other than that, from a community's point of view, we've just been enjoying the fine weather and definitely enjoying the high milk prices in the dairy sector. So that's pretty short and sweet from me, but yeah, if there's any questions, happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Anna. We will open for questions. We'll go a different way at this time. You wish to be in?
I'm just trying to.
I don't know what you're going to say.
I'm just trying to get my head around exactly what you're looking for.
Oh, I thought you were going to say what you're
Looking for funding.
Just an update. Yeah. What are you looking for from council from an assistance point of view?
It's just a update really about what we've been up to really. I'm just keeping council informed basically.
Fantastic. So the applications are done, they're in.
Yep.
So they look all right?
Yeah, they look good. Yeah, they look good, and we've been dealing with internal affairs, so and their decision will be June. I think it's the 6th of June. So hopefully we're successful in some funding for both halls.
Hope you are.
Yeah.
Councillor Kogan.
So, firstly, I'm just wondering whether, as a council, due to the payout being so well this year, whether we can apply to the Koirangi for funding for some things that we've got on the go currently in the
Oh, you could try.
But look, I totally agree with what you're doing, and good on you guys for pursuing that whole thing around the emergency centres being at both halls, because like it's always been a concern for me with that that bridge going out to Kowhidaurangi, that when you're cut off, with any major event with that, then Koirangi is very much stranded. So obviously it is going to make it almost an impossibility to get people from that side over to the other. So well done and congratulations, for getting those application forms in. Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Kogan. Councillor Neal.
Yep, no questions. Thanks for the update.
Thank you, Anna, for the update on behalf of the Kowhidaurangi Community Association. We appreciate the work that you do as a voluntary organisation to support your community, and really well done on the work around establishing emergency centres, or the intent to establish emergency centres in both communities. If you need anything further from this group, please let us know in the future.
No worries. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
See you. Bye.
To move the verbal report from Anna Hart, the chair of the Kowhidaurangi Community Committee, be received.
Can I just raise a question?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Chief Executive, is
Yes.
Lauren working on?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay, thank you. And happy to move.
Moved, His Worship the Mayor, seconded
Yeah.
Councillor Neil. All those in favour? Those against? The resolution's carried. Thank you. Good presentations this evening. We are now ahead of agenda, and just wondering if the Hectica Regent Theatre presentation, if Bruce is ready to go. Okay, welcome Bruce up to present. So thank you Bruce for taking the time to come and present to this committee. So it's part of our ongoing relationship with the Regent Theatre to receive reports, written and verbal, mix of both, every 6 months. And tonight's, just so everyone understands, tonight is about informing the committee on how we arrived today, so what the last 6 months has looked like, and what the next 6 months would look like with council assistance. So really they was on the action list tonight around forward capital and maintenance plan for the theatre and how that might align with council's planning cycles. So good and welcome, Bruce.
Thank you, Chairman Martin and councillors and Mayor, Worship the Mayor. So this is our second of our 6 monthly visits to this committee. We were last here in October and spoke to quite a comprehensive report then. And I've also got comprehensive notes today, but this is a verbal report this afternoon. I can tidy it up and give members in due course a written version if you'd like. So as touched on by Chairman Martin, at the end of the last meeting, there were a number of items agreed for us to do. Yeah, I'll just summarise these at the moment and briefly mention the main conclusions, and then the rest of my report will be sort of expanding on those and a few other matters. So yes, we said we would report to both the October and April meetings each year. So this is our second meeting in April. We provide minutes to committee members, which we'll continue to do so, and I've just added Councillor Kogan into the list. We can do that for anybody else that would like. We presented an application for drawing down our grant towards the end of last year, accompanied by the core of our business plan, which is essentially our budget, how we're going to spend that money, the rest of the monies. And we have worked up a long-term maintenance plan in two parts really. There's our immediate maintenance plan of the things that we can see directly ahead of us. There's a big spreadsheet that appeared on that. And also we reviewed what we've had in our business plan previously, which is a longer-term maintenance plan for major maintenance and current replacement. And another thing that was agreed at the last meeting was to show the committee members around the theatre, which we have done. Councillor Kogan was unable to be at that meeting, but we've since given her an individual tour. And,
That's amazing.
And also Councillor Martin wasn't at the main tour, but is very familiar with the theatre through frequent use. I should add that we're quite happy to show other councillors around, and that may be useful when they're coming to discuss decisions and long-term plans and things like that. So we're happy to extend that invitation, and any that we know we'll perhaps contact directly and give them a royal tour.
Particularly with you, I might add, Bruce, with your running historical commentary that you provide as well, which is incredible. He's going to write a book.
You might have to dictate it. So I just wanted to start with continued effects of COVID-19 because they affect theatres in a different way to other enterprises in the community. And I guess that's because we depend, I should say the movie side of our operation subsidises other community activities in the theatre normally. We have a big summer season where we get blockbusters and things, and the money, the income we get from that keeps us going, because it enables us to provide the theatre as a community facility for other purposes. And of course, that's been cut drastically because of either the lockdowns with COVID-19 or the lack of blockbuster films, because they're not being released while the Northern Hemisphere is still in COVID chaos. And just to sum up what the impact of that was, if you look at the figures between 2019 and 2020 for paying attendances at movies, there's been a 53% reduction between 2020 and 2019. So the numbers went down from 16,000 to 8,500, which is a 50% reduction. And that's roughly, finance roughly tracks that. In fact, the financial figures are a 50% reduction. If we look at the recent season, we've got an additional factor of it being too jolly fine, which is great for every other activity, but not for movies. We can get, on a wet day, the busy time of the year, we get 3 times the number of people that would come the day before, a fine day. Even if we take Saturday, for example, we went up from about 16 on Friday to 67 people on Saturday, just because it was a rainy day. But we've also got some great movies. They may not be blockbusters, but they're very good movies. So for the first 2 months of this year, we had a 66% reduction in paying attendances at movies. So you can see how important the council's grant to us is, and also the employment subsidy last year. We got roughly the same amount as the council gave us in an employment subsidy, and that enabled us to keep going, providing a great community facility, because we really have to retain the staff we've got at the moment. They've each got particular functions. There's only one person normally on duty at the theatre at any one time, so there's very little that we can do to actually reduce our staff expenditure, and it is our major item. So thanks to the government and the council for enabling us that to continue. So we ended up, by the end of the year, in a good financial position for starting this year, which is obviously going to be another tough year. Although the movies were down, there were some encouraging signs from events in terms of attendances when the levels allowed that. So we had a great mountain film festival, more recently a big bike film festival. We had a wonderful day with Tom Scott's Daylight Atheist, which had to be moved because of numbers from the Dramatic Society at Old Lodge to the theatre. And of course, things like community carol singing, Lions Christmas Parade, and returning of all the lights, they were all great. They may not bring in much income, but they're great for the community. And as you can see in our business plan this year, we're taking a fresh look at how we can remain viable and increase things, particularly in the promotions and events area. More of that in a minute. Since we last presented to council, we've got the new contractor started in the cafe. That's Woodstock hotel people who have opened in the cafes, calling it the Woodstock at the region. And of course, that'll just be great for us. They've got the resilience and the size to be able to deal not just with the fluctuations of the day-to-day operation of the theatre, but if we have during the day, but if we have a big event, they were already doing our catering, so they can cater for big events. So we're really well situated. People like them. They're very competent, and it's just been a great change since we saw you last time. And they started about the 15th of December. I've already mentioned how important the wage subsidies have been to us, and we have just more recently applied for the resurgence wage subsidy and the resurgence support packages. So that'll be quite important, because even though it was orphan, it was in level 3, and we had to go to level 2, and we can still open, but with reduced numbers. It was a major impact, because it's a stream of people. This time of year, we still get quite a lot of visitors coming, and as that stream was cut off out of Auckland, immediately there was an impact on the number of outside visitors coming to the theatre. So those subsidies are quite important to our budget this year, or will be at the beginning of the year. We have made quite a lot of progress on maintenance and capital replacement items. We've replaced the 2 TV poster screens at the foyer steps. We've purchased a generator and installed a switching system for it for keeping the basement dry and floods. We've converted the theatre security system from a analog to a digital system, which is a huge improvement. In fact, can be managed remotely if necessary. We've replaced and upgraded the main cafe window and window surrounds, and repaired the old 1938 Art Deco windows, steel windows above the cafe and corner shop. So our next major job is repainting the front wall of the theatre, and we've had to have a rethink on that because we were going to do it with our local painter, a cherry picker, but now it's going to be a combined cunning volunteer operation with abseilers and volunteers working on the scaffolding up on the veranda. We'll start by testing the systems by just repainting the veranda front, which will start next week. As I said, we've prepared an extensive spreadsheet showing all the work that we would like to do on the theatre with the medium term. We've prioritised that, and our normal method is to do just to apply for small grants for the material and the contract costs that we can't do ourselves with volunteers. We've got a great big list in front of us. We've tidied up our existing list. And in addition to that, we have reviewed, years ago we looked at what we thought we needed to have be putting aside annually for a fund that enabled us to replace major plant and to do major maintenance jobs. We reviewed that several times in the past. The figure was consistently about $20,000 a year. Now with inflation, it's $25,000 a year. And we've never had that amount, of course, as part of our grant or grants from anywhere else. We've tended to be working on an ad hoc basis and apply for individual grants for components of that. But that's really what we're looking at in the long term as being ideal. And that's assuming that we carry on with the current management sort of operation of the theatre as well, where it's a combination of contributions from the council and a heavy input from volunteers. And I'll mention again, because it's easy to forget, that the difference between the theatre and a lot of other community facilities in town is most of the others have a dedicated group of users. It's a dramatic whole lodge. There are people that are interested in drama. It's a boys' brigade, it's a boys' brigade, and so on. Whereas there's no one user group for the theatre. There's literally dozens of community groups use the theatre in the year, and it's managed by a group of people who actually understand, like, and who are sympathetic to the multiple uses of the theatre. But we're not doing it because we like going to movies, we like going to shows. We're doing it because we can see that it's important for the community. We have a wonderful small group of people that have been working on that now for several years, but they're all getting a bit older. And when we've got a job to do, I've got to it's like putting a jigsaw together. Somebody can't get up that, somebody's got a wonky arm, somebody's arm's a bit dicey. And sort of setting it all up to make things happen is quite a challenge. And one day it might be a bit more difficult to do than it is at the moment. So we need to be looking at the long term, and the idea of having in the long term plan, considering in addition to the operational grant, a $25,000 a year grant that goes into a long-term maintenance and plant replacement fund, which can only be used for those purposes, maybe in consultation with the committee. I think is a sound thing to do. I mean, if we manage to accumulate it to $100,000 or something, maybe it can be kept at that level. But that would then enable us to deal with central heating and the ventilation plant falling over or the loss of the projector. We're insured against accidental falling over of those things, but not sort of replacement through normal wear and tear. And those are the sort of amounts that are, those two things in particular are big budget items. It would be difficult to handle normally. We have been accumulating a sort of contingency fund. In any case, whenever we can put some money aside, which we've been able to do for the last 2 years, we've been putting some money aside into the contingency fund, which isn't entirely for plant replacement, it's for COVID situations and what might ever occur. And that's now at 38,000, and it's quite an important buffer if you've got to find budget at the moment. So we've already worked up our budget for this year, assuming that we're going to have a continuation of the council grant plus a CPI adjustment. And essentially it's a break-even budget, and it just shows how important the council's contribution is. We're happy to share that with councillors on a sort of confidential basis, because it does have, it does have commercial confidential information in it. But just to give you one example of the sort of pressure we're under, our wages budget, which is our biggest single component, of course, is under pressure from the increase in the minimum wage, which is great for people. I support the idea of minimum wages increasing. But, it's unlikely the CP, does anybody know what the CPI is going to be for the last year? It's not much more than 1%, whereas the minimum wage is increasing 5.8%. And of course, we've had to deal with that year on year for the last 2 years. And there's an immediate flow on, which you can read behind the lines, between a raise in the minimum wages and what we've got to pay in wages. One of the big things we've just recently done is appoint a promotion and events coordinator, because we decided we have to have a fresh look at how we're going to move forward and fund ourselves as be as self-reliant as possible in the future. So we've just taken on Laura Neal, who some of you met the other day, as our promotion and events coordinator, and she will enable us to get more productivity out of what we're doing already at the moment by just ramping up our promotion effort of the activities we're already involved in ourselves. Should be a great help to groups, other groups that want to use the theatre, because we can offer a promotional package that will increase the number of people coming to their events, increase the prices they can charge, and hopefully we can share in that as well. And she'll also enable us to run some exciting new events that we've always thought about, but not had the energy or the skills amongst us to do. And some of those have been on the list for several years. And she's only been with us for 10 days, and already we've got one event which she's helping us with, that was already underway, and an exciting other event which will be held the night before Halloween. And the first one is we're doing a national launch for a new book on Weka and the ecology of the Weka, which causes a great interest to, in many ways, for people that live in the Hectica and wider West Coast area. It's a wonderful book. Nobody was doing anything about it, so we managed to secure the national launch. We've got some generous sponsorship from Doc and others, and also it's going to be such a great event that people will pay to come in, just $10. We can sell some books and lots of ice cream. So that is something that we're able to do with people like Laura on board. So you get to all come to that. You'll learn all sorts of things. And just as an aside, we've got this wonderful recording made at AP Harbour. We used to explore back in the 1890s with Charlie Douglas. So he's recorded in 1890, talking about Wekas and Charlie Douglas. Sorry, in 1949 he was recorded, talking about Charlie Douglas and Wekas and the Karangaroo in 1895. So we'll be paying part of that recording. And those are the sort of things we add on to the sort of normal book launch that might be at the library or the Carnegie Gallery. It'd be great for the people that are really interested in those books. But this will be entertaining as well as informative. And we've got a history of doing these sort of things in the past. A number of you have been part of those. And as that reputation builds, we'll be able to do things like, bring Lee Child to the West Coast, as an add-on to him coming to the national book weeks in Auckland and Wellington. And we've already in the past had some talks with publishes about that. So that would just be wonderful, not just for the district, but people would come from all over New Zealand to see them talk in the theatre. So that's just a taste of what we'll be able to do with our new promotion and events coordinator. So that's been factored into the budget for this year. There'll be a few months where we've just got to build the systems up, but after that, the new position will more than pay for itself, and that's been taken into account in the budget. Okay, I think I'll just wind it up there just by summarising the three things that we're really talking about coming out of this meeting. Hopefully, will be, an invitation to other councillors to see and understand what goes on at the theatre, and I'm happy to contact them on an individual basis and make arrangements. We certainly know from our budget for this year so far how crucial that continuation of the council's operational grant is. And we talked at the last meeting, or at the meeting where that was agreed by council, that we go into the long-term plan for consideration over a 10-year period with a CPI adjustment. That would be so helpful because we spend so much time making applications for things. We're almost limited. We are limited, if you like, by the time we've got to do that. So it would be a big help to us not to have to come back with a major campaign every year to council. And then it would be great if we could have that maintenance budget considered to go into long-term plan as well, 25-30, if that's okay. And we can provide more information on that if required. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce, for the comprehensive update and strategy discussion looking forward. Open for questions. Councillor Neil.
No questions. Certainly appreciated the tour around the region. Really interesting. Appreciate it at the top, and it's good to see.
Thank you.
And it makes a lot of sense when you come to us with the holding the money. So.
And thank you, Mayor Smith, for filming up in the ceiling as well. A lot of people have looked at that. We'll share it on ours because a lot of people don't get up to see what's up above the roof, above the ceiling, and not everybody can get up there even if they're invited. So I've sent the link to Jenny.
I watched the link. I have to say, I was given the opportunity by Bruce the other day, and I took one look at their ladder, and I'm like, I ain't getting up there. I can't even get up a step ladder, Bruce. I'm sorry. And he said, that's all right. I'll send you the link up front that Bruce Smith did, and you can see it through those eyes instead.
Wonderful. Councillor Cogan, do you have any questions to Bruce?
Look, I don't know whether it's questions or I guess it may be a little bit of advocacy, really. I did appreciate, and I would actually really encourage other councillors to go along and actually take the time to go through and experience what some of us have already had a chance to do now with the Regent Theatre and what's done. To be honest with you, and members out in the community, because what you have managed to grow and have net there is a standard of excellence, I have to say, Bruce. Like that you have, that's like one of the best well-oiled machines of a building as far as maintenance, as far as preservation, as far as and the volunteer side of it that you all put into that. Everything has a place. Like I've never seen anything so well organised, and the utilisation that you guys have and the thought you've put into all those little nooks and crannies, but there's a place for everything, isn't there? Really, like it's just an absolute credit to you. And listening to your story, and that's why I kind of finished off that day with you, talking to you about it's a credit to you around the history, which I still don't think our district gets around the significance of the history of that building and how you've actually tried to keep that alive, even right down to like the work you guys went to because I always questioned a little bit the colour scheme on the inside. I still thought, about that, you know, and then you made me think, oh, wow, okay, now I really like that colour scheme because of the history that comes with it, you know, and just what was even involved in being able to do that. So I just really, really got to congratulate you and all of the team of volunteers at the Regent for how you've continued to sustain what you've sustained there. And I certainly understand from the other point of view, it's great that you've got Laura on board now, helping with the event and promotions. I guess we're very lucky that there's the likes of yourself that's given so much volunteer time into helping to run that as a, you know, that building over the years. And I guess the sad reality is, you know, people like yourself aren't always going to be around. And I'm just very conscious of.
I've got other things to do.
I'm just very conscious once again about, you know, the volunteer hours, even in a role like yourself, because you've been a key leadership role there. You know, when that falls over, how do we continue and how does that get sustained longer term as well? I know, and because it won't, you know, I can't imagine it being through just the funding that Laura would be able to generate on her own through the promotion and events. So I guess that's something that, you know, you guys obviously have to consider in your longer term business plan, and as a council, I believe we have to consider as well.
Yeah, well, the long-term plan is going to be an important part of that. But thank you for your comments, Councillor Cogan. And I'd just like to make a couple of observations. Firstly, there's been the theatre since 1935. It was technical. It was the most advanced theatre in New Zealand at the time, in 1935. It's always been, you know, got Cinerama or whatever it was called, CinemaScope, you know, as soon as it came out, the commercial owners of the theatre were very advanced for their time. So it's had a history of being at the, you know, at the top of technology, if you like. But of course, as TV came on and movies sort of died away, it was no longer a straight commercial viable operation. And that's when the community came on, the old Town Hall Committee, purchasing the theatre in 1979. And since that time, people like Max Dow and Hilda Reynolds and John White and, you know, all of the other people that contributed before our committee contributed a huge amount. And if it wasn't for the, you know, the fire alarm system and the sprinkler system and the strengthening that was done in 2003, we wouldn't have been able to sort of pick it up and improve on that. So I'd like to acknowledge previous generations of, you know, committees in the community. And we're constantly thinking of long-term sustainability of the theatre. Laura will be very important in that because she's great at documenting things, and part of the secret is just to have all the systems documented so that if somebody else has to come in, they know what to do rather than reinventing the wheel. Yeah, it is quite rewarding when you show people around, particularly people from other theatres, because they recognise what a great operation we've managed to build there. And that theatre can do things that most theatres in New Zealand can't, especially in that single space, that tend to have, you know, a performance theatre and then maybe little multiplexes on the side, whereas we do all the things, most things in one space. And that's got huge advantages to us. And that's going to be part of our revised marketing plan, because we can do things like we have the big bike film night, you know, with 100 or 150 people there, whereas there's no other theatre on the coast, movie theatre, that can handle that. So that's why we're looking at those sort of outdoor events. People on the Hectica and the wider area love them, but also we're able to show those in the venue that can take the numbers of people that make it commercially viable. Anyway, that's enough.
Worship.
I'm very impressed with the wander around, and at the end of the day, it comes down to every town's got a town hall. In our case, the theatre, and ratepayers fund them, and the mix between ratepayer funding and commercial income is always a delicate mix. But it's clear that if the revenue can be increased, it will allow your committee to do things that you normally wouldn't be able to do. So I fully support your move to taking on more. It just makes perfect sense to me. Perfect sense.
Cool, thank you very much, Bruce, for the presentation, and we've captured those notes around budget discussions. I think you went very quiet when you were mentioning numbers, but I think we've recorded what you'd asked for, so we'll no doubt take that into consideration tomorrow. So thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you in October.
Thank you.
Not before. Thank you. Thanks, Bruce. Someone prepared to move that we receive the report from Bruce Watson on behalf of the Hectica Region Theatre, and note the request for around the budget.
Yeah.
Councillor Neal, Councillor Cogan, all those in favour?
Yeah.
Aye. Those against? It's carried. Great. We're moving through our agenda, and we come to our final presentation this evening, which is the update on the Southwestern Digital Hub from Melanie Edison, the Chief Executive of Destination Western. So kia ora and welcome, Melanie. I'll just give you a moment to get ready. Te whiki.
Look at this. That's for you and I.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Firstly, I just want to apologise. There may be some things that come up in this presentation that I'm not familiar with. My subject expert on this matter was unavailable today due to personal reasons. So I will do my best to answer questions. I may have to take some away at the end and come back to the committee later, but I will do my best during this presentation. Right, so Te Whiki, the digital hub. Where nobody gets left behind, everybody moves forward. So that's where we're looking at with Te Whiki. The core values that we have for Te Whiki, there's 8 of them. Te Whiki being the octopus, so we have 8 core values.
Thanks.
Just wait.
That's all good. Thank you, Mel. We're working through dinner tonight.
I understand that. So they're listed there, and all of them are about the sharing of information, connecting people, and enlightening and sharing. So the first thing I want to talk about is in the improving of digital capability, which is one of the big things about the digital hub. And due to the relative isolation of South Westland's communities, they generally don't attract the investment required to establish digital capability programs. However, this doesn't mean that businesses aren't being established or that people don't need support. By offering training and workshops to facilitate technological usage and advanced digital literacy, we can unlock enormous opportunities in all of these communities. So things we're looking at in this space is that co-working, sorry, I have different eyesight, co-working spaces, video conferencing facilities, drop-in for travelling visitors, as well as enhancing their community enterprises through digital support. And you'll see there also that free Wi-Fi for visitors to the hub. We've got this big mark here about influences. So the outreach. Now the outreach is a big part of the South Westland Digital Hub concept. Obviously there are compelling synergies between a facility that could be opened and operated as a digital drop-in and business training centre and a hub for emergency events management and resilience of communications. Te Whiki's current base and First Base is Fox Glacier's Community Development Office. It's also the Centre for Civil Defence in Fox. There are significant opportunities for businesses to spring up around the growing visitor economy, which we will see, for support to be offered to existing enterprises, farms, and again, visitors, and for there to be an alignment between the digital hub and the work that Westland District Council is doing to strengthen the region's resilience to the impact of natural disasters. Currently, digital capability courses on the West Coast are being delivered through West Street or our libraries. Westland District Library offer a range of courses from basic social media to employment readiness and online banking. Our goal moving forward is to work collaboratively with these groups, including Epic and Westport, a well-established digital hub. With the work that we've been doing, reaching out to the likes of Epic and our collaboration, there's some ideas for Te Wheke so far, and these include website development and design, sending down a representative from Tinker Creative to take walk-in inquiries and questions about websites. Epic has also recently filmed a set of videos on the common challenges of websites and can be produced as a partnership with Te Wheke. Remote digital help desks, dedicated drop-ins or appointments where your first 15 minutes is free of charge while problems are triaged. Then the problem can be fixed, or alternatively, a local commercial provider could be suggested. One of the things when we did our launch the other week was an Airbnb owner saying, if we come in, will you roll our eyes when we have, like our grandchildren do? They're afraid to ask these questions. So providing the support means we can help them further develop their skills that they need in order to move forward in their business. Other opportunities are prototype projects. Epic are currently seeking interesting commercial or community projects that need prototypes built or technical scoping undertaken. Assist by gearing project up for a professional build through experiential learning. Mobility. And this is a big thing for what we're looking at the moment with these outreach hubs. An opportunity for the hub to be relocated to other communities given demand or specific events where support is required. Further to that, there is an enormous unrealised potential in this area of Westland, given that people have access to the visitor economy but are a long way from a digital training facility and the associated hardware required. A big part of it is about increasing the opportunities in South Westland. Particular sectors such as the farming sector require support to utilise newer and faster access to technology. Further to that, there is a greater need for those in the tourism sector to provide visitors with authentic, compelling experiences and a real emphasis on value-based visitor propositions over volume of visitors. Businesses and individuals alike all want to become involved in the sector, and they deserve the same access to technology and training as those in the larger regional areas. The benefits of our outreach hub. Delivery of access to technology, capability building programs, co-working spaces for the region's sectors, industries and businesses will be fundamental to driving innovation and creating the future of South Westland. This includes, but not limited to, accessibility for all to digital educational services and facilities, irrespective of their age, their social standing, their rank or location. Improving the productivity of businesses across sectors through capability building programs hosted within the digital hub, and enabling existing digital businesses to safeguard existing jobs and create new ones. Objectives of Te Wheke is effective participation in the digital economy to grow a sustainable digital ICT sector. Remove the digital divide. Attract and retain talented people, businesses and capital. and we're to promote meeting capabilities in all of the communities across South Westland. That is from Haast all the way up to Hectica. Our next steps: deliver the programs, including things like accounting software, agribusiness software, coding. One of the things when we were down at the launch the other week was I got asked by a teacher, I've got a girls' club, can we use this to teach them coding and drive them into that ICT world? It's also an ability to provide a drop-in internet office space where people can come in, either use our hardware or their own hardware, and utilise the internet to grow their own businesses, liaise with people and move forward. We're currently working with a third party to assist with some additional funding because we're actually limited with what we can do with part of the funding that we have. And this funding will enable the Zoom meeting capabilities for more of our local communities. So that means that our community halls from Haast to Harihari and everywhere in between, we will be able to have a set-up point where we have Zoom capabilities, a level of connection, and the ability for council, for example, to communicate, for civil defence to communicate, depending on what we have in that space. And our ultimate goal, as we've stated there, is multiple hubs. Permanent, multiple hubs from Hectica to Haast. That's not going to happen tomorrow. It's a 5-year plan, but we are working on it. Any questions?
Thank you, Mel. Thanks for the update on Te Whiki. I will open it up for questions. Councillor Neil.
Yeah, I'm sure I could do it coming along to it. Basically.
Absolutely. Excel to everything.
Yeah, no, that's really good.
Thanks, Councillor Neil.
Questions?
Councillor Cogan.
Yeah, so a couple of questions when you talked about around Zoom capabilities. Yes. Are you guys going to actually purchase the business user part of Zoom so that if the facility goes in, because I'm
do you
just
mean the hardware?
Yeah, well, I'm just conscious that I know, looking into Zoom at the moment, that if you connect up and you're under business use, you only have 40 minutes to be able to...
Not if you're the recipient. So, for example, a meeting, if council set up the meeting, then the end user will have, they're all part of, so in the short term, no. However, it's all part of all the other software and other bits and pieces and licenses that are being built into the different areas. So with the ongoing community development, that's one of those things we would be looking at, yes.
Yeah, because I just think from their end, looking out, you know, like Zoom is becoming, and actually, and I question mark Teams as well.
And we do have Microsoft loaded on our individual ones, our individual hardware that we have set up. There were some photos there. They were actually from our launch.
Yeah.
I go back. That's actually the hardware, some of the hardware set up that we had at our launch. And you can see there the Te Whiki logo as well. So there's tablet and there is more hardware coming in. We just need to ensure that we buy the right hardware. We are hamstrung by X amount of dollars towards hardware and we don't control that purse. So we work through Development West Coast and their procurement. So we go to them and say, this is the hardware we want. This is what we want. Well, this is what we'd like the hardware to do and go through that. So this is our initial purchase. We still have funds available to purchase more.
So facilities like software programs like Xero, you know.
Xero's. So that would be the actual user would buy their own accounting subscription. Yep. So, but what we can do is provide training on Xero.
I just wondered, you know, will training become part of all of us everywhere? Yeah, which is that's really good to know, because that's what frightens people. You know, is not having that backup or that resource to be trained, even in Microsoft applications, you know.
And that was one of the big things that came through was that the question from one of the local Airbnbs was that will we roll out eyes when they ask what they consider to be dumb questions? There are no dumb questions if you're learning something.
No, absolutely not. And also, how does that work for, like, because on site, like, is there somebody at each area that will be there, and are they paid to be there on a daily basis to support these people coming in and out? And I'm not really sure. Just explain that to me.
So our first one down in Fox is where we've launched down in Fox. And the reason we launched down in Fox is they had the capabilities and the space for us to come in easily and set up. They've got a spare room that we can hire out. It's all part of the budget that was put forward. And there is a community development officer down in Fox. We've also got an IT hub person who will come in and help as well and turn on. So there's different concepts to it. There's that initial drop-in space, and that's where you just need someone to turn the computer on. And then you've got the training. So it's overarching. You've got your drop-in space where people can come and use the Wi-Fi or use a laptop for an online course that they want to do themselves independently. Or we've got facilitated workshops where we will have people around our hardware, or they might bring their own hardware, and we'll facilitate a workshop. Now that might be, the hub manager might be there and it might be zoomed in, or we might bring a person down and facilitate in-house and actually on site. So it depends on what the course is as to how we facilitate it and who the users are.
So will you guys work in conjunction with, like, you know, places like Taipotini and West Reap and all of those ones to actually, because I think, you know, they already have providers as well, don't they? But then you've also got external providers as well.
And Western Library, our own Western District Library, is already doing some things in that space at a, I guess, excuse the phrase, simpler, sort of a lower level. Everything from online banking, you know, checks are going out, and still today people are unsure about online banking. Even some in business don't like online banking, and so these are ways that we can help them progress and move forward.
That's awesome. That gives me confidence too around, you know, once it's in place, how, you know, that can work in the bigger picture.
And it's not just a one-off, it's actually something that we see growing and developing. And that's probably seeing that bigger picture as to where we're going in that space is huge.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Cody. Thanks for the responses, Mel. Worship.
I'll watch with interest.
Any further questions or discussion? Anything else from you, Mel?
No, but we look forward to delivering something for the betterment of our southwestern community and Western as a whole.
No, we appreciate you taking the time to come and update us this evening. Look forward to seeing Te Whiki grow. No, don't know why I did this movement.
Because that's how I explained Te Whiki.
Okay, hey, thank you so much. Is someone prepared to move that the Te Whiki Civils and Digital Hub update be received from Melanie Anson, Chief Executive of Destination Western? Councillor Neal, seconded Councillor Cogan, all those in favour? Yeah. Those against? The resolution's carried. Thank you. Thanks to the presenters this evening and supporters for the presentations. We do appreciate it. We now move into agenda item 7, which is our staff reports, and we welcome Sarah Brown, the Community Development Advisor, to give a verbal report. Good evening, Sarah.
Good evening, councillors, your worship. Please.
Thanks, guys. Yeah.
The first item is township development funding. The 10 townships who receive township development funding have completed accountability for 2009-2020, signed agreements for current year, and picked up their fundings. All are incorporated societies and are working through the committee process with their communities to allocate funding. The item is Waitangi Day, 6th of February 2021. Funding of 3,000 was secured from the Commemorating Waitangi Day Fund. This was a fabulous sunny day, not to be taken for granted in Westland. Commemorating Waitangi Day continues to be educating our community on the Pauwhiri process and Te Tiriti o Waitangi. We were fortunate to have Kai Whakahaere Lisa Tumahai present and address us on rangatiratanga. It was valuable for all to hear. It's always a privilege to hear Paul Madgwick speak, and it was fascinating to learn some of the origins and meanings of place names on Te Tai o Kutini. A general report and expenditure report have been furnished to the Commemorating Waitangi Day Fund 2021. An overrun of budget of $50 was met generously by Council. 2022, Te Runanga o Makawhia will host the commemoration of Waitangi Day at Mahitahi, Bruce Bay. Bruce Bay is a bit short of a 3-hour drive from Hectica. Western District Council will work with representatives from Te Runanga o Makawhia and Bruce Bay community, support accommodating camping and camper land sites for those wishing to attend the commemoration and travel down perhaps the night before. A bit of planning to be done there. Mayor's Task Force for Jobs, Community Recovery Program. January was the main pastoral care follow-ups across 37 businesses and 75 positions, which the Mayoral Task Force for Jobs has funded. The 500,000 allocation has been largely exhausted, and our coordinator, Charlotte Bradley Penny, is being conservative with applications at this time. Western Mayoral Task Force for Jobs, Inspire to Aspire Career Day, Thursday the 18th of February. It's a full-day event at the Paki Waitara building, involving 7 national and 23 local exhibitors. A welcome and breakfast was held at 8 a.m. at the RSA building. Mayoral Task Force for Jobs and MSD representatives were present. LGNZ used a quick filming and did several interviews with rangatahi, apprentices, employers, MSD representatives, your good self, Mayor Smith, and coordinator Charlotte Bradley Penny. Community feedback has been positive, and data collected from attendees and exhibitors will be collated and be able to be presented later. Safer Westland, Clued Up Kids Safety Event. Clued Up Kids is a new project for Safer Westland. The last time this was presented in Westland was 2016-17. The program consists of real-life role plays known as sets, which are arranged in the form of an interactive course organised and delivered by specific community safety agencies. Each set is 15 minutes. Students are presented with a number of tasks and problems that are assessed. On their responses, there is a pre- and post questionnaire that the students are required to complete at school to identify a change in learning behaviours and evaluate and support the continued development of the program. This event targets children years 5 and 6 who are of an age where they become more independent and are having to cope increasingly on their own. A feature of the proposal is its realism, which really appeals to children. The small groups of students allocated to each set allows you, as a presenter or an agency, the opportunity to create challenging and realistic situations to encourage and promote practical and realistic responses. Clued Up Kids was held Friday the 26th of February at the Boys Brigade Hall. Attending, we had approximately 100 children from 7 schools, and we had 8 different facilitators from Fire Emergency New Zealand Police, Ag Safe Training, that's quad bike safety, Animal Safety, Civil Defence, New Zealand Rail, St John and Schools, and Community Public Health. Next item is Cultural Feast, Westland Migrant Stories. Funding was secured for 2020 Westland Culture Feast, 5,700, and I applied to have this extended until the 30th of June 2021 due to our COVID levels. I met with Cassandra Struve last week during level 2. New Coasters has taken a lead on the Cultural Feast. Cultural Feast with food, dancing, music, and story presentation at Seaview Hall was destined to be the 10th of April. This has been cancelled due to the COVID levels and being a bit pragmatic about people, places, and how things are going to change. Plan B, an exhibition and extend the Westland migrant stories. 6 stories have been completed to a high level with photographer and artist. There's a clear potential to expand this into a wider selection of migrants, 6 to 10 more individual stories. The ability to make this a West Coast wide travelling exhibition is a no-brainer, really. I showed Cassandra the Pakiwaitara building, which could be used as the Hectica venue for exhibition. We're going to rewrite the proposal for an alteration to the ethnic communities funding through our DIA contact, Leva Davis. Funds would be then used for exhibition, travel, venues, posters, mobile display boards, and further migrant stories. In my community development role, I've been working with the Westland Emergency Management Officer, Lauren Emmanuel, and introduced her to several of our community groups. Lauren is working with several of our community groups to refresh their community response groups. And we went, as your worship asked, we've been out to Kokatahi, Kowhitirangi, and to Whotara, Haast and Kumara. We have worked with the Haast community to clarify and develop funding streams from the Marks Road Civil Defence allocation to improve the capacity and for the community response group. We have assisted several groups to apply for funding for resilience and capability around tools and equipment to increase community capability and response. Something new for Westland has been the presentation of civil defence open learning events. The first was delivered to Harihari community. Lauren has also managed to secure the AFA presentation, The Science Beneath Our Feet, for Whotara, Wednesday the 5th of May, 7 p.m. at the Whotara Hall, and for Kokatahi, Friday the 7th of May at the Kokatahi Hall. Lastly, Creative Community Scheme, the current round is now open. Westland District Council has received an additional $4,643.11 as part of Creative New Zealand COVID response, added to our usual allocation of $10,167.40. This gives us a total of $14,810.55 for the current round. This additional funding is to enable the committee to look at fully funding a larger project. With this in mind, I've advertised the funding round earlier than usual and given the Western Arts community some extra time to develop applications. The Westland Creative Community applications will be closing on Friday the 26th of March 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for the comprehensive report.
Yeah.
Appreciate the work that you do in this space, and we'll open it up for questions. We ship them in.
I think you do a fantastic job.
Thank
I
you.
really do. And when you hear a report like that, you've been all over Westland. You're very, very focused on fundraising. The Careers Day, which we know
It was amazing.
was just amazing. It was fantastic.
We're very lucky to have Charlotte Bradley Pelly.
And that Sarah Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Very lucky. So you do a great job. I'm just really impressed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. Councillor Kogan.
Yeah, no, awesome, Sarah, and awesome just to see so much on the go. Is that publicised somewhere on our website for people out in the community to actually be able to see all those things that are happening?
Most of it is in the community notices and on our website, the council website, and on the council Facebook page as things come up, yes.
Yeah.
And of course the creative communities is, each round is advertised and then there's a allocation is put in as a matter of course.
Yes, well, I just started my eyes over to Latham with that, with Matari.
Martha, thank you.
Yeah, so for funding. No, so that's great, and I guess I just want to make it, that, we get, there's some very clear, messages going out there around what's happening and how that's getting supported out through all of our communities in our district, especially, at times like they say when they need all the support they possibly can. Now, and asking around that too, like I did wonder, do we have a database of our district and the community groups that?
Yes, we do.
Do we? How do
It's on the Westland District Council website.
So we could I would be able to download a copy of that, and that's every community group.
Probably not every community group, but it's most community organisations.
Not the new ones. Pretty close.
Depends how new they are.
Yeah.
Okay. Because the other thing, and it's actually good that you're here, because one of the questions, every time we have one of these committee meetings, it's the same, in the same kind of form that it keeps coming up around that whole, like the mountain bike club tonight, talking about, how, like they've just got this amazing thing happening, but they're stuck because they just don't have that person that can help them with a business plan properly or know the right avenues of funding. And like I'm not saying for this because I already know that your job's already this big anyhow. But is this something, like I just want to question, is the community group, well, who we are as a committee, should this be something that we should consider, that is something that we could either apply for funding to have someone paid wages to be able to help these community groups?
A lot of our community groups go to some of the seminars that are held through Development West Coast.
Yeah, but what if they don't? What if there's a lot of community groups like the mountain biking tonight that don't go to them? What would it look? I just have to put the question out there. What would it look like if there was a facility to have somebody? Because we have so many great community groups. And are we tapping, or are they tapping into their full potential or not because of that whole business plan and an inability to understand the full funding potentials that they have for each of the community groups? Because they're doing a great job already, putting so much volunteer time into, what they do. I just have to question mark what maybe a role could look like that supported our community groups with that, just that specific.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there are other ways of doing it. There's companies around that, like Strategic Grants, specialises in identifying grants and taking them through. They take a percentage of the successful grant. So there are ways of doing it without council doing it, but there's a cost to it.
Anyone who's applying to lotteries can get assistance through DIA, and we have that's 0800 number, and you get someone in Greymouth who will help you.
You're quite right, but it's a bigger discussion, I think.
Yeah, look, I just want to, I just wanted to throw it out there to get everybody's views around that because, I just see that there is a gap there, and but I'm really not sure about, what that looks like, or your naming agencies, you guys know that.
A lot of our community groups, I've helped with funding, and Lauren has also helped. We both work with different groups through the capability and resilience funding. When it comes to lotteries, they do have access to DIA to actually go step by step through that.
Just through the chair, whenever we're approached by various groups, we generally point them in the direction of support if required. It really comes down to what they're after and what they're trying to achieve. We can't write the plans for them.
No.
The issue is finding the right person to link with them to do that work.
Could we get a copy then, perhaps? Could we get something in the short term done up where we have access to what those links would be? And what those
There's
departments?
already ones like Fund View and things like that give you all that information of where to go to for grants.
Where's that?
Fund View, I think there's a few different ones, example.
Through the library, you can go to.
DIA.
Fund
It's
View.
a full register of funding support. The issue is around if you want a business case to build, you have to pay for it generally. And that's where sometimes these smaller organisations don't have the funds to afford that. So applying for a grant to build a business case is always half the challenge. It's the same with councils. Doing business cases comes at a cost. We usually get external support when that's required as well.
Yeah, I just wonder, should then we be through the website and through your link on the website be able to have something that community groups could also then just tap into, you know, because with your suggestions and say, you know, if you're applying for lotteries funding, you know, go into this site, you know, just something they can easy access. Especially if we're setting up these digital hubs everywhere, you know, like then it makes it easy for whoever's in that role to be able to say, hey, go into the district council community, you know.
I think there's something like 1,800 different organisations that will provide funding for you on the West Coast here, like 1,800. It might be over 2,000 now.
Oh, but I bet you there's a lot of community groups that don't know that.
Oh, gosh, you know, I started to read the list and only got past the Bs.
Oh. But that can be overwhelming for community groups, and it can be the difference between them pursuing something or not.
Fund View has recently changed its software, so it makes it a lot more user friendly, and they can access that through the library.
Thanks, Councillor Kogan, for that.
Job, probably, Jenny.
It should be.
Okay.
It could easily be a full-time job for, you know, for all the different community groups, sporting groups and so on. To provide,
That's why I just
provide that
wondered.
service.
Yeah, that's why I wondered, is it something we needed to consider?
I'm very thankful you raised it because I'd love to put Sarah in the cloning machine and duplicate it 100 times because the needs there. And when I think about what the Local Government Act tasked us with the full wellbeing, economic, cultural, social, environmental, her role covers all. But there's not other departments in this council that touch on the social and cultural. That all gets lumbered to our community development advisor to do effectively two of the 4 pillars of the Local Government Act, and we have 1.5 people doing that, and we have, you know, 59 doing all the other stuff. So the way I see local government going, I mean, I haven't got a crystal ball, but it's leaning more and more and more into that wellbeing, community development, localism, up ground level stuff. Yeah, there's some big changes with water and those most important things around infrastructure, but I feel we're getting pushed in a direction of needing to really do the community development work well. And I think we are starting to really lead the way on that, on the coast, particularly the work that's happened in the last 6 months with the careers days, aspire to inspire. I think groundbreaking work that you've done with Waitangi Day and the team at council have done running that, and the amazing work that we work in all the other NGOs and organisations that exist that provide some sort of benefit in this space all have really strong connections with you and your team, seriously. I get what Jenny's saying because it's what I've been saying since I've been on this council. If we funded a full-time fundraiser, they would pay for their wages 100 times over, because it is overwhelming for community groups to see the list, but also the calibre of the application that you write is often what, when I sit on and funding organisations, is what I'm looking at. And if you know how to write and sell your case well, you're often more likely to get higher on them. Like
And
just
like-
because of how you write, it's incredible.
And being on, I guess that's from my experience, like being on lots of community groups over the years, it was the biggest dog bearer. You know, it was that difference between whether you went that little step further or you just stayed below the radar because you didn't have the experience or the people that were able or willing to be able to commit to that side of it.
Councillor Neil.
Thank you very much, Sarah. You didn't know how hard you worked on those different areas of events. Hopefully.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for your report.
Thank you very much.
Someone to move that the report be received?
Yep.
Councillor Neil, seconded Councillor Cogan. All those in favour?
Yep.
Aye, those against? The resolution's carried. Thank you very much. We're now moving through our agenda and we're at the close of the public section. And I'll declare the meeting closed at 7:44 p.m. I hope my watch is accurate. 43.